Capability.
Wait, what? Oh my god, you're gonna fucking attack with that thing twice. Hey everyone, this is Curb and I bring you another standard match. Today we have a little bit of a fun one, kind of just testing out a couple of decks here. On the left we do have Flagburg, and on the right we have myself playing my Magnolia build. So I believe I have already deck profiled this Magnolia build, so if you want to check out what the deck list is looking like, you can go ahead and check that out. And of course the Flagburg, the winner of the next deck that I should do poll for some reason, is on the left. This is probably the last time we're going to be playing this deck on the channel, just because even though Flagburg is kind of a fun deck, it really just is sometimes just feels bad when you don't get to do what you want to do, and it is still just like not a very good deck. Anyways, getting into the match, of course both decks are playing the same ride line, the Zorga ride line, because it is just the superior ride line. We do have a little bit of a proxy card there that is supposed to be just a Misty-Arc habitat. At the time of this recording, I have like a playset and a half of them, and all of them were currently in Flagburg because that was the deck we were actively testing. So if you see a backwards card, it is just going to be a habitat. So I do kind of forget what Flagburg does here, and I call down an Alvin for some early rush. I definitely do like Alvin in the deck. I don't think I actually mentioned it in the deck profile, but you can actually do cheeky stuff like this, where you kind of just call down Alvin to be an attacker or booster, and then just slide him back into the back row. Once he is done with his job and you are finally ready to actually start attacking from the back row, he is a very, very good attacker. Unfortunately, like I said in the deck profile, he is really the only kind of card you have the ability to utilize in this deck. I mean, you can use something like Goyledote, but at the same time, it's a little bit finicky. It's not as great as it is in like a pure Magnolia deck, just because Masques does require a lot of pieces to function. Anyways, we see the habitat putting in work there, getting out the whatever her name is. She's just the new multi-attacker from set 7. I guess I can't really say new. Set 7 came out like months ago, but you know, she's there just to serve as a little bit of early aggro rush. Going to be unfortunately drawing into the second copy of Masques there, I believe, meaning that I will not be able to search it off of my depth, whatever it's called. I guess I can stop calling it Neil Serving now that I kind of remember what his name is. But we are just going to be calling one. I think I do actually have one in hand, but the play I always go for is if you have Habitat and a copy of the Depth, even though you might want to think, oh, let's deck thin, I always like to use the Habitat because that means that I can possibly get a Depth from the deck, and then just use its skill there to deck thin again. So instead of committing cards from hand, I'm just committing the one Misty-Arc habitat and deck thinning by 2. Anyways, gonna be swinging at the Vanguard first. A rare instance where I do that just because there is a rear guard there. So even if my opponent gets a defensive, I will be able to still swing at the rear guard, but there is no defensive popping off there, so I am just going to be able to swing at the Vanguard, and I believe that is just going to be met with an intercept. So basically mission accomplished. So we do see the Inlet Pulse called here. We can't use the skill since I'm not at grade 3. Going to be digging for that grade 1, and looks like we unfortunately are not going to be seeing it, and we're going to have to settle for that one of the Reborn girl. I don't remember what her name is either, but I'm sure you guys might see it on screen. If they don't use the skill, then probably not, but at the same time, you know, we do have 4 attacks here with the grade 2. The grade 2 is honestly kind of what the deck needed, like all the way back in set 5. But, you know, they finally have it now, but the deck is essentially just power crept out of the meta. So we have the 4 attacks here. If we had gotten the grade 1, the high rate burst, we would have been able to do our 5 attacks, and that would have been really cool. But since we don't, you know, we're only gonna be able to get the 4 attacks here. Gonna intercept the first attack, take the second attack, which, you know, maybe in hindsight I probably should have just taken the Inlet Pulse, hope for a defensive, and then intercepted the next attack. But in the end, I don't get punished because I do actually hit into a heal trigger here. Unfortunately, my Alvin is going to have to die here because the 4th attack skill of Flagburg. I am going to decide to guard for a 5k, which is going to make this from a 1 to pass to a 2 to pass. Since I'm guarding 25, that is going to require 2 triggers. And it looks like it actually does pay off, as we see a critical trigger coming on down. So I would have been pushed to 4 if I hadn't committed the 5k guard. Inland Pulse going to be hopping into the Soul, and then of course using its skill to draw a card. Going to be getting a little bit ahead of myself as I try to call something before I actually discard for the Ride deck, probably because I don't really have anything that I want to discard, and this choice is a little bit difficult. But it looks like I do have decide to just discard the Dragon Tree Marker generator, the grade 2, but I'm not sure. I must, oh, it's because I have the grade 1 in hand, and I figure I might as well use that if instead of just using the other one, because I can't even search for the mask anymore, so there's no real point. Calling down a say roll, so if I do see the mask, I will be able to give the back row an additional 10k, in addition to the 10k they get from Dragon Tree Markers. Using the Sayroll Scare, unfortunately whiffing off the top 5, just a bunch of triggers and a Habitat. I don't think you can add Habitat, even though it does have that clause. It is not a Magnolia card, so I don't think you're actually able to get it. Using the skill of the mask in the drop zone, persona riding the mag mask from the hand, and then calling down an Alvin as well as the Abyss Alvis to generate my second Dragon Tree Marker. Unfortunately, I did give up that grade 2, meaning that I will not actually be able to get a third Dragon Tree Marker, which would have been really nice in this situation. I think my hand is just a little bit too good right now. I don't have any good discard targets. If I had been able to search out the masks instead of drawing into them, then I would have probably had much better things to discard. But, you know, it is what it is. That is how things happen. Unfortunately, I don't really have anything else to call here, so this is going to be my formation. Like I've said, this is kind of my problem with Mag, that you don't really have a lot of ways to build a board. A lot of the times you're committing cards from hand, and even though you do have the grade 2, I'm kind of blanking on its name, to just, you know, get you back a board, it does require setup and it does require counterblast. So even though you have like an amazing board builder, it's really only good in the mid to late game. Building your first board can really be a pretty big hamper. I mean, if I had actually kept my rear guards around instead of, you know, having them die to Flagburg, things would have been a little bit better. But we are able to actually push Flagburg to 3 with the skill of Alvin. Basically, even though we got a defensive, and that would have just been a 15k guard, because of Alvin's skill from it when attacking from the back row, that would have been 2 cards anyway. So honestly, it just makes a lot more sense to just take the attack, even if we can guard it. But going for a very interesting play here, calling the high rate burst dragon and giving this skill to the grade 2, meaning that this grade 2 is actually going to be able to attack 3 times, as we see the high rate skill being burst here. Because it is the first attack, you can counterblast 1, soul blast 1 to restand it, and then of course she is going to have to swing once again at the Vanguard, not going to be able to hit, but using her own skill this time to restand herself and get an extra 15k. Not swinging at the rear guard for some reason. I think that's just a little bit of a misplay there, as the Florence swings in using the skill to mill 2 cards. Unfortunately, both of them are not normal units, so only going to be getting an extra 5k here. I believe I did get a defensive trigger, so this would just be a 15k. Unfortunately, I don't think I actually have it, so I am going to be having to commit my over trigger there, just because I want to be able to safely take this Flagburg attack, and if I had taken that attack, I would be at 4, meaning that I die to a single critical trigger here. But by guarding the Florence's attack, I am actually able to withstand at least 1 critical, which it does actually end up coming out. So going to be pushed to 5 here. So I believe I did drive check. Yeah, I drove checked the Magnolia mask, and I think I actually top deck the, what is it called? It's like some sort of forest dragon, the grade 2 that I was just talking about. So I do actually have plays. Unfortunately, I still only have 2 Dragon Tree Markers, but that's going to be more than enough. I would really love to call the Alvin, but I think at this instance, it is just more important that I call the Sayroll in order to actually get that much more power. So we are going to be calling the Sayroll as well as one other thing. I do kind of want to get one of my Dragon Tree Markers, Dragon Tree Marker generators, I think I have like 3 copies of the grade 2, so that's probably going to be my second target. And here I actually make a pretty big misplay. I think that the say roll should be in the center back row column, and then I should have put the Depth Irwin in the leftmost column, and then swap the position with the Bist Alva. Let the Bist Alva attack from the back row, and let the Depth attack from the front row, because the numbers don't really matter that much, and by doing it that way I actually get an extra 5k shield because I will be able to actually intercept with it. But anyways, that misplay, as we're going to see, is going to end up costing me a lot as we swing for 18 here. Going to be blocked by a, was that draw trigger, I believe. Swing for a 35. Actually remembering that I told my opponent that I activated the Magnolia Masques skill, but of course you can definitely see him with a Magnolia still in the drop zone. I will remedy that in a little bit as we take this, not hitting into the defensive, and now the Magnolia is hitting for a very nice magic number of 28 here. Gonna be hit with a PG, very understandable. Drive checking into a habitat and another habitat, which is deeply unfortunate because that means I'm not gonna have very much shield value, and I can't even guard with order cards from hand to block against Flagburg's attack. So swinging the Depth Ilva here, hitting into a draw trigger, so kind of unfortunate, but you know, everything is still attacking. The Florence is going to be able to attack for a 33, and I think another big misplay here, I forget to use the Florence's skill. If you recall, I actually did guard with my over trigger, so I would have been able to actually remove it from the drop zone and add a card from my drop zone to my hand. I think I should have a PG in there by now. So if I had done that, that would have made things that much more livable for me in the next turn. Also, I probably should have retired another rear guard here, just because, you know, I did attack with 3 units from the back row, and I did use the Magnolia skill, so I only ended up retiring 2 rear guards. So a lot of big misplays coming out from me, which is probably the reason why I am in such a bad situation. Anyways, we do see an inlet pulse called here. I think we drove check a Flagburg in the last turn, but we must have just discarded it for the PG. So we are not actually going to Persona Ride, but it doesn't actually matter that much. I think we might actually need a little bit of soul now that I'm thinking about it. But at the same time, I've got 2 habitats in my hand. I think I have like 2 other cards. Flagburg is ready to do at least 3 attacks. I don't know how much soul we have left, but you know, depending on how much soul we have kind of determines how many attacks we have. But it looks like we have enough soul there. Oh, that's right. The soul that we got from the Florence is actually coming up in this instance as we swing the inlet pulse. This is at least 4 attacks. But at the same time, I really don't have a lot of guard value in my hand. If I had, you see me guarding with a 15k there. If I had actually just pulled up the Depth Irwin, I could have just intercepted there, and that would have been much better. But unfortunately, I just do not have the guard value in hand, just because of all my misplays. I had 2 PGs, including, did I actually have enough to guard that? Oh, yeah, I would have had enough to guard that if I had it misplayed with the grade 2 and I actually put it in there and I had actually been able to intercept with it. I would have totally survived that, but you see the thing that the impact that small misplays have. Anyways, I'm rambling. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to do things like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.